Good morning and welcome to another beautiful day. As you know, I'm your hostess, Dr. Mrs. Jennifer Braimah, on this beautiful show, Intensive Feminine Health. Let's apologize for coming to you a little later than usual. There was some, due to some circumstances that we were able to overcome, and that is why I'm here today. All right. Last week, when we introduced ourselves to you, we talked about all the various cancers affecting women, from breast cancer to ovarian cancer, vaginal cancer, uterine cancer, and cervical cancer. We have not exhausted all the cancers, but we thought it fit to look at something else this week. So this week, we'll be starting with female genital mutilation, female genital cutting, female genital circumcision. They're all the same thing. And this is a topic that I'm very, very passionate about. I'm an extreme advocate for the complete elimination of female genital mutilation, FGM for short. Female genital mutilation is an abhorrent, horrible human rights violation against women. That is not the definition, that is my view of it. A lot of people, of course, share the same view as I do. What is female genital mutilation? Female genital mutilation is the cutting of parts or all of parts of the female genitalia, that is the female external genitalia, making up or comprising the clitoris, the labia minora, labia majora, and the clitoral hood. This practice is rife in Nigeria and is thriving all over the world. Even in countries like America, England, China, wherever you find people, this practice is entrenched. It is something that a lot of national and international agencies, non-governmental organizations, CSOs, are fighting day and night to ensure that it is eradicated. Before May 2015, when ex-President Jonathan Goodluck, promulgated the law to ban female genital mutilation, there was no ban on female genital mutilation. A lot of states, one or two states, tried to bring it to the fore and ban it, but there was no enforcement, and so it continued. Some people said to ensure that it is medically done, to be done cleanly and sanitarily, they introduced doctors and midwives well trained to handle it. As long as you're removing parts or all of the female external genitalia for non-medical reasons, then it is a mutilation, it is not necessary. There are different types of female genital mutilation, type 1, 2, 3, and 4. Type 1 is the most common one, where the prepuce that is surrounding the clitoris is cut off, and maybe a bit of the labia is cut off. That is the type 1, and this is the most common one in the southeastern states. Then you have the type 2, where the entire clitoris is removed. The entire clitoris is removed. That is also practiced in the southeastern parts of the country. Then you have the terrible one, which is the type 3, called infibulation, where the clitoris, the clitoral hood, the labia majora, the labia minora is scraped completely off, and that female's external genitalia is laid bare. Not only do they scrape all of these little parts that I've mentioned out, they go ahead to suture what is left together, and a tiny hole that is the size of a needle or a matchstick is left for menstruation and for urination. While this process is going on, these poor women are tied together like pigs to be roasted from their hip to their ankle. They are bound so that they don't shake when they are doing what they are doing. Of course, when they start doing it, their hands are held, their legs are held, everybody's holding them down and pushing them down for this procedure to be done, because it is quite painful, and they do it without any form of anesthesia or without any form of sterilization of the instruments that they use. Now, what kind of instruments do they use, and who does these things? Traditional birth attendants, women that are trained. They call them women that enable girls to pass from girlhood to womanhood. They say it's a rites of passage. And they do this to these girls. And what do they use? Not a single instrument that is used is sterilized. They use regular blade razor, they use knives, they use stones, they use their teeth, they use rocks, anything they can lay their hands on. And the emphasis here is that these instruments are not sterilized. They use it successfully for one girl after the other, especially when they are going through their feminine rites or their female rites to womanhood, the rites of passage. They can use one razor blade for 1 million girls. And of course, you know what will happen when that happens. If perchance any of the girls happens to be infected with any of the communicable diseases, the sexually transmitted diseases, that is how the diseases will be passed on from one child to the other. I'll tell you a story of what happened to some people that I know. This man and her husband, they live in the United States. They have 4 beautiful daughters. And the woman, not even the man, has been insisting that these girls are going to be 18 soon. They're like 18, 16, 14, and 12. Especially the one who is 16, whose birthday was coming up before the 25th of December, that it was imperative for them to all go back to Nigeria and get their rites of passage, go and get circumcised. The husband kept trying to dissuade her. She said, no, they must go. Okay, let's please the wife. And they eventually went, took the girls to the village, did what they did, and they came back. A few weeks down the line, a few months down the line, the littlest one, the 12-year-old, started having recurrent fever. The other one started having recurrent fever. They took them to the hospital, and of course, long story short, they were all HIV positive from undergoing female genital mutilation. So what did we say just now? Female genital mutilation is a partial or total removal, cutting off of the female external genitalia for no medical reasons, for non-medical reasons. And they use unsterilized instruments, like I mentioned earlier, knives, razor blades, bottles, broken bottle, rocks, even the teeth. The old woman will use her teeth and chop it off if maybe the young girl is struggling too much. More than 30 million girls in Nigeria have already become victims of female genital mutilation. 3 million are susceptible annually to female genital mutilation. 27% of women in Nigeria, out of our 200 million and counting, 27% of women have already undergone female genital mutilation. Isn't that an appalling statistics? Even when we looked at cancers, the least percentage we got was 25%, and that was a worldwide percentage. This is just a Nigerian percentage, 27 million. And Nigeria, being the most populous country in the world, in Black Africa, has more population than the rest of the other African countries. And it is said statistically that Nigeria has the highest burden of female genital mutilation. That is, highest burden of victims of female genital mutilation. It's appalling, and it must be stopped. Luckily, ex-President Jonathan Goodluck has, promulgated the law. But the problem now is, are they enforcing it? Because as I speak to you, many more girls aged between 8 days to 49 years old are being mutilated. And this mutilation is, it doesn't matter whether you are alive or dead. If at the point of death for some people, or for some tribes, a woman was found not to have been circumcised, she's circumcised before she's buried. The earliest age for circumcision is 8. The oldest age is 49. But if that woman dies after 49, and her tradition says she must be circumcised, even in death, she will be circumcised. This is a horrible practice that we all must put our hands on deck to ensure that it is eliminated. What are the consequences of female genital mutilation? The first one, of course, is death. A lot of girls die from being circumcised. And why do they die? From blood loss, hemorrhage. I'll give you another example. While I was in clinical practice, I nursed a baby. From birth, her mother had prolonged obstructed labor, and she came out with complications with her respiratory tract and infection. We nursed this baby for 8 days, and to the glory of God, she regained her health. We discharged her on day 9. Lo and behold, the very next day, day 10 of her existence on this earth, she was rushed back into the emergency room. I happened to be on call. What is the problem? She was bleeding profusely from her genital area. What is the problem? Where is the mother? Mother, where are you? The mother is at home. Why is the mother at home? She's at home because she begged her mother-in-law not to do that to the daughter. If you want to circumcise this girl, give her a few more weeks to get, older and more mature. Healthier, because she's been through a lot in the last 9 days. The mother-in-law said no, she should have been circumcised on day 8. This was day 9, she must be circumcised. And the poor child kept bleeding like a stuck pig. We did what we did. She survived. We had to transfuse that child, otherwise she would have died, because she was already paper white, thin, thready pulse when she came in. We circumcised her, put her on IV antibiotics, did everything that we did, and she, survived it. But if she had not survived it, what would the mother-in-law be telling the mother of that child and her father, who happens to be the mother of, this man? These are just a few of the examples that I can bring to you today. This is something that we really, really, really need to ensure that we abolish from our society. Let us take a little break. When we come back, we'll give you all the side effects of female genital mutilation and discuss how we can go ahead to eradicate it, or come up with one or two alternatives, especially for the people who do it as a source of income, on how they can source alternative sources of income. See you in a few minutes. Welcome back from that short break. We've been looking at female genital mutilation, and I said when we come back from the break, we'll look at the side effects of female genital mutilation. There are very numerous side effects of female genital mutilation. The first one I elucidated just before we went on that short break, and I said is death from hemorrhage. Hemorrhage is bleeding, just uncontrolled bleeding from the genital area, because the genital area is infused with lots of veins and arteries and capillaries, and it bleeds. Even the tiniest cut, it bleeds, much less of a deliberate deep cut. And so when the person dies, that's the end of life. Hemorrhage causes the death. If the person doesn't die, if the young girl doesn't die, or the young woman doesn't die, she can develop septicemia, infection of the blood, raging fever. It can result into disseminated intravascular coagulation, leading to death again. You have also injuries to the reproductive tract, to the cervix, to the uterus itself, resulting in infertility. Infertility is also an adverse reaction of female genital mutilation. We also have the anatomical effects. The anatomy of the external female genitalia is forever destroyed, distorted by the scraping off, especially if type 3 is performed. Taking off completely of the clitoris, the labia majora, the labia minora, everything is just scraped off and then it's sewn together. So it looks really terrible. So there's also psychological effects where the girl doesn't feel confident enough in herself. She shies away from men. She becomes frigid. Frigid is another side effect. The other side effect is physiological. The external female genitalia does not function the way it is supposed to function. And then you have, of course, the sexual impact where the woman feels nothing during sexual intercourse. She doesn't know no joy, only pain. There's dyspareunia, which is pain during sexual intercourse. It's terribly uncomfortable. Of course, when it is time to give birth, when she eventually gets married, she gives birth, it's difficult. You have prolonged obstructed labor because of all the adhesions that have taken place during the healing of the female genital mutilation. And so this woman will have to be cut open, either given a generous episiotomy or, she has to have a cesarean section just to give birth. And now mark you, the infibulation, which is a type 3 female genital mutilation, requires the suturing, remember as I told you earlier, of the entire external genitalia, and a little hole is left for urination and menstruation. If the woman needs to go to her husband's house after the wedding ceremonies, she's cut open afresh to allow for intercourse. So you can imagine the pain that these women are going through. After the initial intercourse with her husband, she's sewn back again together to ensure that she remains faithful to her husband. And that brings me to the next subtitle. What is the reason for female genital mutilation? 1, human rights violation. 2, female subjugation. 3, they want you to remain a virgin until you get to your husband's house. How female genital mutilation will do that, I have no idea. Because from my experience, from talking to people and all of that, I have found out that a lot of women who underwent female or who were victims of female genital mutilation are running from one man to the other, seeking for sexual satisfaction, not knowing that their clitoris have been cut off. That is why they can have no satisfaction during sexual intercourse. So they're running from one man to the other. So if the purpose of female genital mutilation is to make you a virtuous woman and to keep your virginity, the opposite is actually what is happening. Because these young women become promiscuous, become nymphomaniacs in the search of sexual orgasm, which they can never achieve, because that tiny little organ there, the clitoris, that is the precursor of sexual orgasm, has been removed. And so, who gains at the end of the day, or whose purpose for initiating this law in the first place is being fulfilled? Nothing is being done. And so we need to stop female subjugation. Otherwise, what about our SDGs that we're supposed to attain gender equality by 2030? It will not be realized if we begin, or if we continue to promulgate female genital mutilation. This must stop. Now, we said we were going to look at the reasons why people do what they do, as in the midwives, why they perform female genital mutilation. Of course, they don't do it for free; they are paid, so it's a source of income for them. So, for us to be able to abolish female genital mutilation completely from Nigeria, we must also retrain these women to channel their skills into something else, so that they can also earn a living. I know of a nurse who used to be, a proponent for female genital mutilation, but she stopped and channeled her skills into something else. She became a well-trained nurse, midwifery, auxiliary nursing, and she's she earns well as a nurse where she works. So some people still say, okay, come and do this thing for us because we like the way you used to do it. This woman told me about your skills and all of that. Just to satisfy them, she will get a razor blade and just prick the prepuce and to start bleeding. She doesn't cut off anything, but because she doesn't want them to go to someone else that will actually physically mutilate that child, she will do a pricking on the clitoris. But it is still female genital mutilation, because number 4, the type 4 of the female genital mutilation category or staging, is that any pricking, cauterization, or otherwise mutilating that external genitalia for non-medical reasons is female genital mutilation. So in her own way, she's doing the lesser of two evils, completely taking out the clitoris or just pricking it, so that the moment the parents see the blood, they'll be satisfied that genitalia has been circumcised. Circumcision is meant for just men, and I told you why men should be circumcised last week, because the penile hood, which is still the prepuce, which is cut off during circumcision, harbors bacteria, virus, and all what have you, and it is easy for a man who is not circumcised to easily transmit human papilloma virus, easily transmit HIV, easily transmit herpes simplex, easily transmit gonorrhea, chlamydia, and all of the sexually transmitted infections. That is why men must be circumcised. Women should not be circumcised. It is men who must be circumcised. So we have to be our champions, especially the men, champion the call for female genital mutilation to be abolished. I hope we have learned quite some new things today on the show. Until I come away next week, until I come away tomorrow, to have a wonderful, wonderful Monday. Take care.